Broadcasting from the business capital of the world, this is the Podcast Business News Network. So excited to have Susan Blue joining us here. She does somatic therapy and education. Hailing from beautiful Colorado Springs, Colorado, we're going to talk about craniosacral therapy, all that has to do, and of course, how that can benefit you and the people you know in your life. So first and foremost, welcome to the show. How are you doing today, Susan?
Good. Nice to see you.
Pleasure to have you here. Excited to talk about all this work that you do. And for those out there listening saying, hey, what's craniosacral therapy? And, I know it's a process that you use, somatic trauma resolution. Could you talk just a little bit of an overview about the work you do?
Okay. Well, craniosacral is working with the brain and the nervous system and its relationship to your structure, movement, your organs. But most of all, it's about how your nervous system's able to regulate itself or not.
Got it. And by the way, the work that you're doing, is it only in person or do you do virtual work as well, Susan?
I do virtual work on occasion. I did during COVID because we were in shutdown. But I primarily work with people.
Beautiful.
The results are better.
All right. Well, we're excited that you're here, and I would love to, talk a little bit about, first, before we get to know what you're doing and the big series you have coming up, I want to know a little bit about yourself. Where did you grow up? And talk a little bit about your family life. I got to read a little bit about you, about the independent thinkers, and amazing. They were so progressive for their time. So tell us a little bit about that. Where did you grow up specifically?
Most of it was in Grand Junction, Colorado.
Okay.
Western Slope, high desert, and the biggest city between Salt Lake and Denver. And very rural, so everybody canned and made things from scratch. And girls learned to change tires, and boys learned to sew.
Yeah.
And
awesome.
yeah, so nice community. And my dad was a mining engineer, so he started out working for the Atomic Energy Commission and then went to work for Climax Uranium when they left the area. And my mom had been a social worker. They met in Salt Lake, but gave up her job, to have a family, be a mom. So most of my life I lived in I started first grade, second grade, we were in Globe, Arizona, and then back in Grand Junction. So that was, there was just a lot of things happening at that time. And I don't even recognize it when I go back. It's just grown and so different.
You also mentioned your maternal grandmother. You said she was ahead of her time, right? She cut her hair, wore trousers, rode horses, and she was a divorcee raising 3 children, artist and educator.
Yes.
So, oh my goodness, and a lot. Wow. And who would you say inspired you? Was it your first art teacher?
Well, she was my first art teacher, but I was like 4 years old. And so I was like stick people, and I wanted to know how to make eyebrows and make expressions on people. And she was trying to teach me how to load a brush with watercolors, and that was just not quite my skill set then. So, so she was very, she was a well-known artist, and she was active in the arts. And so, I mean, that's been a big thing. I'm very primitive compared to her. And so I've had my career as an artist, potter, that kind of thing, before I got into massage work. And I got in because of my own needs with my body. I had 13 vertebrae surgically fused for a progressive scoliosis.
Oh my goodness.
And so I went through a lot of chronic pain afterwards. And so through massage and then movement therapy, I was able to regain a lot of movement that I had lost
Mm-hmm.
and manage the pain. And currently, I don't have pain, which is just such a big deal to me. It's amazing.
Wow.
And yeah, and so I teach what I've learned.
Beautiful. Well, thank you for
Yeah.
sharing that. And then how did you end up into this field? What was your first experience with craniosacral therapy? I want to hear how that journey turned for you.
Well, my first experience wasn't real great because it took me 3 months to recover.
Oh, wow.
And
Okay.
I think it was a person who didn't have a lot of experience. And
Mm-hmm.
I'd had, besides the surgery, the back surgeries that I had, I've had a lot of accidents where my body was pretty dinged.
Yeah.
And when I hit my 50s, I decided that I really needed to retrain and do a lighter type of work rather than deep tissue. And I started out with the body mind centering work, Bonnie Bainbridge Cohen's work. And I was in class and we were learning to release the brain as an
Mm-hmm.
organ because it'll come forward as the fluids move up. And I got stuck unwinding a lesion on the left side of my brain for 45 minutes. And
Wow.
so, yeah.
Well,
And so it was intense, but it wasn't painful. And my instructor checked in on me, and that's when I knew that I needed to have more training
yeah.
because there was a lot more to that. And so I did the cranial afterwards. But I think for me, in my career as a massage therapist,
Mm-hmm.
the state of a nervous system really depended on how a person was going to recover from their injuries
Mm-hmm.
or get through their illness.
Yeah.
And you can feel it. I mean, you can look at a person, you can see it. You can touch a person and you can feel it. But with massage, it was really evident even more so. So it was just kind of a natural thing to go into.
Beautiful. Well, thank you so much. We are excited to get to learn more about somatic blueprints and to find out, the work that you're doing, even, for all ages, right? You offer a free 20-minute consultation, and, the work that you're doing is pretty amazing. And I would love to get to, some specifics about that. And also, I wanted to bring up, you mentioned this online series. What is this all about called Unraveling the Threads of Our Experience? What is this?
Right. Well, the body is the container for everything that's gone on in your life. And in that, it's the nervous system that takes the messages from the different organs, the muscle system, takes it to the brain, and it gets organized. And for a lot of us, we don't know how to unload our nervous system. And so I kind of use the example of defragging your computer because if you don't, you've got files that are running in the background. And I think we all know something when we've got something that's back here kind of bothering us, and we're trying our best to be present with what's happening now. But here's this thing, or there's a sense of pressure internally.
Mm-hmm.
And so the somatic trauma resolution addresses that. The blueprints is for self application of the somatic process. So you can do your own processing from your nervous system, unpack it, and understand how the nervous system works and why it gets overloaded. So
Yeah.
it's not our fault. We just get hijacked by our nervous system. And but it takes some skill to do it because we can't think our way through it. We use our process of our mind to see what the body's saying. So it's the sensation, like tightness in the chest, or oh, I feel itchy, things
Yeah.
like that. That's the sensation. When we follow sensations, we're direct communication with the nervous system, and it processes differently because it has our direct attention. So it doesn't pack it in. it moves it through and it gets to complete the cycle.
Thank you
So
for
the class is to give you those skills and how to connect with yourself more deeply. People know more about being kind to other people, but not to themselves.
that is so true. Yeah, we all lack that self love, that self care. Good
Yeah,
point. Good point.
yeah.
And just to bring up, I know you mentioned, to us that you were a survivor of developmental trauma as
Mm,
well. And I want to talk about that whenever you're ready to find out what could be going on with some of us out there that may not even know, what we're dealing with, but we have certain things in our lives that keep happening or aren't happening that,
yeah.
maybe you could help them dive into. Could you share a little bit about that?
Okay, well, developmental trauma is about the process of bonding or when the bond's been broken or
Okay.
disrupted from the moment of when you are conceived and what happens in your family, how good your relationship is with your mother, your father, your siblings. And so there's different stages of development
Okay.
that we go through that that really put a big impression on our nervous system. And so our sense of safety, our sense of self,
Yeah.
our sense of being okay with who we are, that's our foundational level. And so it's kind of a new thing now because we can't do scientific tests to see the outcome. But there's a movement through psychology and medicine about the effects of what's happened to you. And one of them is the Adverse Childhood Experience ACE test. And
Yes.
there's studies that say that if you have four of those questions that you've answered, you more than likely will have an autoimmune disease or something like that. And so when you address those things, it changes how your nervous system functions because that's where it's lodged. And it doesn't change what happens in your past, but it changes your how you can go about your life because you won't be carrying this in your nervous system and it coming in and taking over.
Amazing, amazing. Well, thank you for sharing that. And can you tell us specifically about someone that you've worked with, and without using their name, of course, but give us an example of how you've worked with someone over the years, and obviously how this has really helped them.
Well, oh gosh, my favorite story is working with a little girl who I started working with her when she was not quite a year old. And her mother was a very small woman. And so she was put on bed rest and stitched up so she could carry her children to maturity. And she was the last child. And anyway, when it was time for the birth to happen, somehow they missed a stitch. And this baby overrode the impulse to push and did not push.
Ah,
And so she was a kid that you could put down, and here she is, almost a year old. She would be in the same place. Her dad brought her in. I'd been seeing her with her mom, and her dad started to tell her the story of her birth and what she did. And she'd look at him, with these big eyes, and then she'd look at me, and then look at him, and things changed in her nervous system. She started moving and she became this lively girl. She was developmentally delayed in a lot of ways, but I just found out that she got accepted in a university in Europe. And so, I mean, this is one of the things that um, when you can address those developmental things that have stopped or put your nervous system on a big pause, or you feel stuck, that's the issue at the bottom of it. That's just one story. Um, I'm working with a gentleman who didn't have the best parents in the world. And so now that he's in his 40s, it's like he doesn't know how to go into that maturation level. Doesn't know how to live unless he's in a survival mode.
Oh,
And yeah, and that's a tough place to be when you're in your 40s.
yeah.
Yeah. So he's moving right along.
Wow. Well,
And I'm
clearly,
just,
you're look at the smile on your face. You are loving
yeah,
what you do, and the compassion. And you clearly love what you do, and I could see it in your
yeah.
face and your smile. And tell us, clearly this is bringing you joy by helping so many, right?
Well, it helped me so much. I mean, I
Yes.
have a life that I couldn't even begin to dream of.
Oh,
And to be pain free physically, but also mentally and emotionally, um, do have a sense of trust for myself, have a sense of trust for others.
yep.
It's a wonderful thing. And that's not how I started.
Mm-hmm.
So we heal ourselves, but we need the right connection
Yep.
and the right attunement to do that kind of work. So, interview your people before you start working with them.
Beautiful, and that's what you do. You got to get to know them, and there's still so much more that you offer. And I just want to bring up this is Susan Blue here joining us. If you are just tuning in, we're excited to have her here from Colorado Springs, Colorado. She's talking about somatic therapy and, of course, education and how she's able to help so many, with her craft in a sense. And what would you say? Sometimes people might just say, well, what other conditions does craniosacral therapy help with? Could you share? Is it true? Stress and anxiety amongst some of them?
Stress, anxiety, accidents. If you're doing rehabilitation from your accident and you get into a plateau, chances are your nervous system is in a guarded situation where it doesn't recognize that you're in the healing process. And cranial sacral can take you into a whole other or open up a whole other area for you to explore in your healing process. Just for me, it's like getting a tune up. You know how you take your car in, you
Yeah.
change the oil? Yeah. Well, cranial is like for me, like a really good tune up.
Wow.
I feel rested and rejuvenated, and I have a tendency to overthink. So it's really nice just to have that be, not so trying to come up and take over. And so that's the benefit just on day to day life. It's great for autoimmune illnesses.
Oh,
So
wow.
there's a wide variety there. There's a lot of conditions that
Yeah.
you treat the nervous system, it changes the condition.
Amazing. Well, can I also
Yeah.
ask, is it safe for everyone, right?
Yes, it is.
Beautiful. And
Yeah.
also, I was reading those with chronic pain obviously can really
Hmm.
benefit from this, but even those developmental issues in infants,
Hmm.
right? And
Yeah.
so you're working with babies as well, any age?
I've worked with some children.
Okay.
And yeah, so yes, I've done the whole gamut, from birth to death. And it's also helped with the dying process.
Oh,
It lowers the anxiety. And
beautiful.
people are more ease, they can just let themselves go into this, transition.
How important is breathing when it comes to, learning maybe mindfulness or breathing techniques in
Oh,
this as well?
absolutely. Yeah. No, it's your key thing. Your breath is connected to the autonomic nervous system where you have
Okay.
absolutely no control, and
Okay.
then to the voluntary part.
Oh.
So if you get startled, you're
Mm-hmm.
like, oh,
That
and you're
happens a
breathing
lot.
fast.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And so if you allow yourself to expand your breath and then bring it down, you will calm down a lot quicker.
Got it.
So your breath is everything.
Interesting. Interesting.
Oh, yeah.
Now walk us through, typically how it works if someone's with you. So people might get anxiety and be nervous just about coming in to meet with you. So
Mhm.
could you explain the process to us in layman's terms about what will happen, what they will go through, what it's going to feel like so
Yeah.
everyone's at ease?
Okay. So I talk to them and introduce myself, and I tell them what I'm looking for is the movement of the cerebral spinal fluid, how it moves up into the brain. The brain will rock forward and widen out. And then there'll be a pause, and then the fluids will move down towards the sacrum, and the brain will pull back and get skinny.
Wow.
So there can be a tone within the cerebral spinal
Oh,
fluid that can be an expression of the anxiety or the
okay.
worry that they have. Um, the rhythm of the cranial fluid itself can be an expression of a very high active system or activation in the system, I should say. And so we look for things like that. Since it moves down through the spine, I look for restrictions or where it gets bottled up like a river
Okay.
going through a gorge. And then we have protocols and ways of like being able to give the body feedback so it'll adjust itself or regulate itself because that's how we're made. My touch is very light. It's like holding a dime. That's the kind of
Mm-hmm.
pressure. And so when somebody starts, I usually have them lay on the table, and I'll stand by their side and ask them,
Oh,
"How does this feel?" And they're going, "Oh, just fine."
yeah,
And
of
then I'll
course.
go over to the other side and I'll ask them how that feels. And they're like,
Oh,
"Well, that's fine too." And then it's what I'm doing is doing a negotiation with their nervous system. Which side is more comfortable? Some people, it's down at their feet. So, anyway, we find that negotiation where the nervous system is able to feel my presence, accept my presence, and they can settle in, and then we can work. But I also have to change my state of consciousness to do this. I don't run around, in the cranial state because I wouldn't be able to do it.
wow. Well,
Yeah,
for someone out there today, my goodness, so we are just about out of
yeah.
time.
Okay.
Wow, unfortunately, that goes so quick. I just want to, thank you for being here, sharing, the process of how
Mhm.
people can be helped by the somatic therapy, and of course, the somatic trauma resolution. It was great getting to know you, Susan. Thank you so
You
much.
too, Jill.
Would you
Thank
mind
you.
sharing how we can contact you? What is your website and phone number?
Okay, website is Somatic Blueprints with the Z, CO for Colorado.
Okay,
.com, and I have a Facebook page, and that is the Blue Method Somatic Processing for Self Healing. So
perfect.
those are two easy ways to get a hold of me.
Beautiful. Thank you so much. Pleasure getting to know you
You're
today and
welcome.
looking forward to the next time we
Yeah.
connect, Susan. Have a great day. Thank you.
Thank you so
Bye
much, Jill.
bye.
Bye
Thank
bye.
you. Broadcasting from the business capital of the world, this is the Podcast Business News Network.
Adopt US Kids presents Multiple Choice Parenting.
Your daughter just had her first breakup. Do you A, put yourself in her shoes?
How could he do this to you? And for Sheila, she has split ends.
B, console her?
Oh, sweetie, this is going to happen a lot. 4, maybe 5 more times before you get married.
C, take charge?
Got to get this all straightened out. Give a little talking to, man to man, mano a mano. Hey, Steve! Is now a good time? No? Okay, no problem. Bye.
Or D, help her find a new boyfriend?
I know a great place to meet boys. The internet. Nice, single boys. Never mind. How about some ice cream?
As a parent, there are no perfect answers. But you don't have to be perfect to be a perfect parent. thousands of teens in foster care will love you just the same.
For more information on how you can adopt, visit adoptuskids.org. A public service announcement from the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services, Adopt U.S. Kids, and the Ad Council.